select billionaires are doing all they can to destroy public education in America. And they're explaining what they're doing, okay? They want to destroy, let's be real clear, they want to destroy the teachers union, okay? Because they believe that that's the problem with education. They want to destroy the public education infrastructure. And I told y'all on the show who created that. If you read James D. Anderson's book, The Education of Blacks in the South, from 1860 to 1935, it was African Americans, formerly enslaved people of African descent, who was elected to state houses all across the country, beginning in South Carolina, who put it in the state constitution for taxpayer-funded education. What Republicans want to do is they want to destroy that entire system. And they want to, under the guise of school choice, and they've been pushing their voucher programs. It's happening in Tennessee. It's happening in Texas. We've seen these things happen in Florida, but those two states are the biggest when we talk about the school voucher issue. In Texas is so bad, where the corrupt governor of the state, Greg Abbott, and the corrupt lieutenant governor of the state, Dan Patrick, two MAGA Republicans, they lost last session. The governor kept calling them back in the special session. They kept losing. The governor and Dan Patrick then said, we're going to target Republicans who voted against it, and they largely succeeded in booting them from office. Last week, the school voucher scam passed the Texas Senate. Now it goes to the Texas House. Former San Antonio teacher and current Texas State Representative James Talarico, he's making headlines all across the state and on social media for calling school vouchers welfare for the wealthy. Listen to this.
Greg Abbott is selling this private school voucher scam by calling it school choice. But it's not school choice. It's the school's choice, because private schools can deny admission to any kid for any reason they want. So how is it choice when the private school has all the power? How is it choice when a majority of counties in the state of Texas don't have a single private school in them? How is it choice when private schools don't have to provide transportation or special education services? And how is it choice when the voucher doesn't even cover the full cost at most private schools in Texas? If you gave my former students on the west side of San Antonio a $10,000 voucher, there's still no way they could afford a $20,000 a year private school. But here's the catch. The wealthy parent who is already sending their kid to a $20,000 a year private school is about to get a $10,000 discount, a $10,000 coupon at our expense. Vouchers are welfare for the wealthy. And by taking money out of our public schools and giving it to wealthy parents who don't need it, vouchers would be a massive, historic transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. And the last thing I'll say, there are a lot of self-proclaimed Christians pushing these voucher scams. I can't think of anything more un-Christian than stealing from the poor to give to the rich.
Joining us now is Texas State Representative James Talarico. Glad to have you on the show. Let me put this in perspective. Several years ago, I founded School Choice is the Black Choice. I've supported charter schools. I've supported African Americans, running charter schools, being in control of charter schools, being in control of the hiring, the contracts, the curriculum, all those different things. I've also spoken at school choice conferences, and I spoke at one years ago here in DC. And many of them, and most the room was mostly white, and they were supporting vouchers. And I said to them that if you are supporting vouchers for suburban white parents, I said, and not for the, let's say, bottom 10% of schools, then you got this wrong. I said, if you truly support vouchers, then you will support them first for who desperately need a better education, as opposed to the top end of folks. And I've been on the record, this initiative in Texas is a school choice scam. I absolutely do not support it because it's not about education. It's not about educating the folks who go to poor performing schools. This is literally about allowing wealthy parents or even middle to upper income, largely white suburban parents who can't afford to send their kids to private school as a way to let them, and it is about gutting public education.
That's exactly right.
And I'm also a native Texan. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And thank you for covering this. There are not nearly enough media outlets telling this story about what's happening to public education in this country. You obviously see billionaires at the federal level with Elon Musk trying to shut down the Department of Education. And you see billionaires here at the state level in Texas trying to dismantle our public schools. And private school voucher scams are just part of that effort. We've also seen it with demonizing librarians and trying to ban books. We've seen it with this hysteria about critical race theory and efforts to whitewash our history. This is all part of the same coordinated effort to defund and close public schools across the country. And it's important that we know what we're up against. I really thank you for your clarification because, you know, we do have school choice here in Texas. Students can go to all kinds of public schools, whether it's a traditional independent school district, whether it's a magnet school, whether it's an academy or an early college high school, or whether it's a nonprofit public charter school that has to follow the same rules as a traditional public school. We have all those options here in the state of Texas. This is an entirely different idea. The idea that you can take money that would otherwise go to our public schools, both traditional and charter, and then taking it out of the public school system and giving it to unaccountable private schools that serve the wealthy few. This is a whole different effort that we're seeing here. And thank you for that clarification, because the words get thrown around and it can get kind of confusing what we're talking about.
And see, here's the game that they're also playing. And again, I spent 2 or 3 years studying this entire school choice movement. My man, Dr. Howard Fuller, former superintendent in Milwaukee, he calls it parental choice. And I spent 2 or 3 years studying it before I decided to go public with the position that I took. And it's all kind of different phrases that you're right, that are thrown around. And I remember it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was even longer. Dr. Steve Perry, he has several public charter schools in Connecticut and also in New York. He gave me a call because that was a woman, it was a white woman. She was I don't even know what the group she was over. And she was trying to build Black and Latino support for the initial voucher bill. And so he was like, well, I'm not from Texas, so I'll call my man Roland, who is. So he calls me, and we're in a three-way, and he tells me who she is and her organization. And so she starts talking about, oh, this is about improving education. I said, what's the name of your group again? And I pull it up. And so I pull up her organization, the website. I can't remember what it was. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you know the top performing Black and Latino charter schools in San Antonio? She says, no. I said, do you know the top Black and Hispanic performing charter schools in Houston? No. Do you know the top performing and Black charter schools in Dallas? She says, no. I said, well, I'm not going to help you with a damn thing. I said, your entire board is white. You don't even know. I said, but you want to ride Black and Latino parents to get this bill passed when you don't even engage with Black and Latino people. I said, so your bill is going to fail. The reason I know this, I've already talked to the Texas Black Caucus about this, because they hit me and said, hey, Roland, can you explain why you support school choice? I said, your bill is a failure because you won't even rally the existing parents. I said, I know what this bill is about. It's not about the parents and the children. And she was just stunned that I went there. And I said, so I'm sorry. Don't think for a second that you can ever call me to help with this crap. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they target these Republicans. And I hope these rural Republicans wake up and realize that they are about to get screwed. They are about to get just jacked up, because we know, and part of the problem with a lot of these charter schools and school choice, transportation problems, access to them. And so rural Texas, out of all people, they better wake up and say, hey, Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick are playing us for fools.
That's right. And a majority of counties in the state of Texas, 151 counties, don't have a single private school in them. And so I don't know how it's choice for the students up in the Panhandle or over in deep East Texas or the Rio Grande Valley when there's not a private school for hundreds of miles around. You mentioned this earlier, that these private school voucher scams have a long, dark history in this country. And the first private school voucher scam was proposed in the Texas legislature in 1957. And of course, the history buffs who are watching your program know that that was just a couple years after the Brown versus Board of Education decision came down from the Supreme Court. And that first voucher scam was a deliberate attempt to resegregate public schools, to allow white students to leave newly integrated public schools to go to white-only private schools. And now history is repeating itself. And actually, I don't know if you saw this, Roland, but the Republican state senator from deep East Texas, this is one of the most conservative Republican senators in the state Senate. Last week, he voted against this voucher bill, and he said that he is worried about a new segregation if this bill passes. That is a Republican state senator from East Texas talking about a new segregation, separating the rich from the rest of us if this bill passes. So we've got to understand the history here and understand how it can replay itself if we're not careful.
Well, and again, if for people who don't understand how these things happen in Texas, when the Hopwood decision was overturned by the Fifth Circuit, the black state legislators, State Senator Royce West and others, when they went back and said, okay, how do we craft this? What they did was they actually reinstituted something that was in place when I graduated from high school, Jack Yates in Houston in 1987, and how I got into Texas A&M. And that was, I was in the top 10% of my graduating class. So the reason that got passed, the top 10%, meaning any student in Texas, any public school who was in the top 10% of their graduating class was automatically admitted to every state university. Well, what they did was the black and Latino legislators in urban centers got with the rural representatives in the centers because the rural folks were pissed that their students were not getting into Texas A&M and the University of Texas. Unfortunately, it was the rich suburban parents that gutted the top 10% later because they complained that, oh, my child is so smart and it's smarter for that kid in inner city Fort Worth or in rural Texas, and they gutted it. But that's how that actually was instituted.
That's exactly right. And it's still happening today. You mentioned my colleague, Senator Royce West from Dallas. He is still leading the fight against this voucher bill this many years later. And we still have partners on the other side of the aisle. I think it's really important that we do not allow public education to become a partisan issue, to become a red team versus blue team thing, because it's not. We all depend on public schools. Even if we don't have kids in public schools, we depend on an educated workforce to grow our economy into the future. And so this affects all of us. You may know that before I ran for office, I was a public school teacher myself. I taught in San Antonio ISD on the west side of the city, which is a historic Mexican-American neighborhood. And so I know that vouchers will hurt my former students on the west side of San Antonio, just like they're going to hurt students in the third ward of Houston, and just like they're going to hurt white students in small towns all across Texas. So we're all in this boat together now, and we've got to create a coalition that is bigger than party, bigger than race, bigger than culture, to save public schools, because this project of educating every child, regardless of how much money their parents make, regardless of what zip code they're born into, it is a revolutionary project that we're a part of, and it's very fragile, and it can disappear if we're not careful.
So for people who also have not been following what's happening in Texas, that was a very right-wing MAGA conservative that they wanted to be the Speaker of the House. And then you had another Republican who's very conservative, but what he did was he went to the Democrats. And so he was elected with more Democratic votes than Republican, but he's the Speaker of the House. And what I keep telling people, when you're the Speaker of the Texas House, just like, frankly, Dan Patrick should be operating as Lieutenant Governor and Greg Abbott should be operating as the Governor of Texas, you represent all constituents. And so they've been angry. They talked about kicking him out of the party, censuring him, changing the rules. And so what is it looking like? They took out several Republicans who voted against this last year. It's going to be a very, very close, tight vote. But do you believe, and what are y'all doing to convince these rural Republicans that they are going to play a part in the destruction of their own public schools if they support this billionaire-funded effort by Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick?
Yeah, so just a quick update on where we've been before. 2 years ago, in 2023, Greg Abbott made private school voucher scams his number one legislative priority. He barnstormed the state. He spent millions of dollars. He was bullying and bribing lawmakers to get this thing passed. And on the Friday before Thanksgiving in 2023, a bipartisan coalition of urban and suburban Democrats with those small town rural Republicans, we came together and we defeated Greg Abbott's voucher scam on the floor of the House. But then Greg Abbott retaliated by withholding all new funding from our public schools. And I think you mentioned this earlier, Roland, that we rank 44th in the nation in per student education funding here in Texas. Texas teachers are making less than they did 10 years ago when you adjust for inflation. And local property taxes are through the roof because our state is not doing its fair share of school funding. So we already had a school crisis, and now Greg Abbott is withholding all that funding as a retaliation against the lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who rejected his voucher scam. I want us to pause and realize what that means. The governor of Texas is sacrificing 5.5 million children in some political fight. He's using them as pawns in a negotiation, which I think should be on the pale. It should be unacceptable to everyone watching, regardless of what party you belong to. And then Greg Abbott took millions of dollars from these billionaires, Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilks, and Jeff Yass. He's an East Coast billionaire. He gave Greg Abbott one check for $6 million. It was the largest campaign contribution in Texas history.
So for folks who don't know, there's no limit in Texas for campaign contributions.
That's right.
And that same Jeff Yass is the one who started funding Trump, who has an equity stake, who wants to buy TikTok. And that's why Donald Trump changed his position on TikTok.
Exactly. You got to follow the money.
Yep.
If you're just listening to what the politicians are saying on TV, you're going to miss it. You've got to understand who is pulling the strings behind the scenes. And so that's why these names may be unfamiliar to you, but the first step is to get yourself educated. Look up Tim Dunn, look up Ferris Wilks, look up Jeff Yass, look up Betsy DeVos, because these are the power players. These are who Greg Abbott listens to. These are the billionaires that Dan Patrick listens to. So Greg Abbott got this $6 million check from Jeff Yass last year, and he used it to go on a revenge tour and went after these conservative, small town, rural Republicans. Their only sin was standing by their public schools
and voting for their constituents.
Yes.
The people who elected them.
Right. And they vote for all of Greg Abbott's crazy bills. They're lockstep with Donald Trump and Greg Abbott. The only thing they did to anger the governor was voting for their constituents, voting to protect their local public schools. Because as you know, in these small towns around Texas, these small towns around the country, the local public school is the lifeblood of that community. It's the only pillar left standing.
Was it 6 or 7 and he defeated all except one? What was it?
Well, we actually had about 5 of them win re-election, which is remarkable. I mean, the fact they were facing this onslaught of big money and big lies, and 5 of these small town Republicans still won their primaries.
Excuse me one second, Representative. For the people who are watching, I need y'all to understand, it wasn't just money. Patrick, Abbott, Ken Paxton, the AG, were going to their districts campaigning against conservative Republicans because he was public. I am going to punish you for voting against me in vouchers.
But here's the interesting part. When they went to the districts to campaign against these fellow Republicans, they didn't talk about vouchers because vouchers are unpopular.
Yep.
Right. Especially in rural Texas. So instead, they lied about their immigration records. They said they were soft on the border and they wanted open borders, or this was the line they were using in all their mailers and TV ads. And so it worked on some of these guys, but some of them still won. And I think it's important to recognize that some of these rural Republicans sacrificed their political careers for this fight to save public education. This is not Democrats versus Republicans, because there are Republicans who care deeply about public schools. And so we've got to build this big coalition for this upcoming session if we stand a chance of beating vouchers again, which I think there is a chance if we stay united, if we stay focused, and if the people watching your program right now, if they take the time to call their state reps, call their state senators, call their lieutenant governor, and call their governor, and demand that they put students over billionaires, then I think we can stop this voucher scam once again.
Well, and this goes way beyond Texas, because this is Texas, this is Tennessee, this is North Carolina, and that's really what's going on here. And I don't think people understand these are a handful of billionaires who want to completely reshape not just public education, but the state. The billionaires you mentioned, they fund everything. They control Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. They want to control Texas politics. These people are dangerous. These people are wrong, and they absolutely must be stopped. And this is the beauty that I keep saying to people. You might be a billionaire, but you only got one vote. And if more people vote against the interests of billionaires, they cannot win.
That's right. And we have to come together, right? They're intentionally trying to divide us because there are more of us than there are of them, right? So if we're all united, standing up for our interests, if we come together across race and culture and religion and urban and rural, if we all come together and stand up for ourselves against these wealthy special interests, then we'll win. And so that's why they have to keep us divided. That's why they've got to be scaring us about librarians grooming children and teachers indoctrinating kids and critical race theory. All this stuff is meant to keep us distracted, to keep us fighting each other. And so we're not fighting them. It's divide and conquer. This is the oldest strategy in the world. And so it's important that we resist that we come together, recognize that we all benefit from public schools. And last thing I'll say, Roland, I'm not defending where we're at in public education. Right. We have so much more work to do. I saw it firsthand. Our schools need so many more resources. Our teachers need to be paid like the professionals they are. We need better curriculum. We need more innovation. We need more experimentation. We need to customize for each student. We've got a lot of work to do. But none of those problems will get better with a private school voucher scam. In fact, all those problems will get worse if we take money out of our schools and give it to rich parents who don't need it.
And what people don't understand is those private schools, there's a reason they have small class sizes. There's a reason they have small enrollment. They're not going to all of a sudden say, sure, let's go from a class size of 12, 15, 17 to 30. So they're not going to create new seats. So they want to completely revamp this entire system for a handful of seats. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, oh my goodness, 500,000. You don't hear the private schools saying, yeah, we're going to create 500,000 new seats at our schools to bring in these students. They're not doing that.
No, it'd be physically impossible. There aren't enough private schools, and there certainly aren't enough open seats in those private schools to accommodate anywhere close to the number of students. We have 5.5 million public school students in the state of Texas. There are maybe 100,000, probably less, open seats in private schools in Texas. So the whole thing is a scam, right? It sounds good at first when you hear the slogans, but then you read the fine print. Then you read the terms and conditions and you realize it's a ripoff. That's exactly what this is. And so we can't fall for the slogans we're hearing. We got to come together and improve our public school system and build in more choice in our public school system, more options, more variety. We could do all of that. But this voucher scam is going to cost $4 billion in the next biennium if it passes. That's $4 billion that are not going to strengthen and improve our public schools. That's $5 billion, in the out years, 10 billion in the next decade, all going to wealthy parents who don't need this help.
And the people want to laugh. Hear me, go to my iPad. This is the Texas Private School Association. He says that on their website, there are only 900 accredited private schools in Texas that serve 290,000 students. You just said there are more than 5 million kids in Texas public schools.
Math doesn't add up. Your viewers should know that not only are those 290,000 students now going to be taking out of our public school budget, but there's also about 750,000 homeschool students who will be eligible to take money out of the public education budget. So that's over 1 million new kids, either in homeschool or private school, who are now going to be taking dollars, tax dollars, out of that small pot that we have for our public schools in Texas. So it's madness. It's crazy town. I really don't understand how anyone could support this bill.
Well, whatever I can do to assist, we have the ability to, and we've done it numerous times, take our show on the road. We can broadcast anywhere around the country. So please let me know how we can help. This will be destructive to my home state of Texas, my home city of Houston. Nearly all of my family still lives there. My homestead is still there in the Dallas area. So you're right. When I had to write that property tax bill out, my parents live in my home, but I write that property tax bill out. So I know exactly what you're talking about, how that bill has jumped in a huge way over the last 5 to 10 years. So totally get it.
Vouchers will make that worse. Vouchers will raise your property taxes because if the state is not doing its fair share, all the pressure to fund our schools falls on our local taxpayers. So if you think your property taxes are high, if you think your rent is high because you pay property taxes indirectly through your rent, it's only going to get worse if they start diverting tax dollars into these unaccountable private schools.
Indeed. Well, my producer, Carol, is going to be sure to give you my number. So however I can help, let me know.
So, thank you for covering this. Not enough people are talking about this.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Let's go to my panel here. This is the thing that we need to understand what's going on. And this threat is real. This threat is real. Tommy, literally, there are billionaires in America. They are trying, through MAGA, they are absolutely trying to control everything on the federal level. They are trying to control the state governments of North Carolina, Florida, Arkansas, Arizona, Texas, on and on and on. And people are getting played because they are creating these groups, trying to make it seem like it's grassroots support. No, this is a handful of hardcore right-wing theocracy, whatever you want, Christian fundamentalist billionaires who want to control the nation.
Yeah, it is. It's frightening, and what the representative was saying there. About the way that, I mean, they're getting ready to shut down or go after the Department of Education, and they're looting it is basically what they're doing. And the thing that struck me about their bill is they also have a thing in there where it's like $2,000 for families per child who are homeschooling. And a lot of people are going to go, I'll take that, and then to help with the public school system. But this is the thing, everybody keeps saying, well, this is what people voted for. And it's really hard to argue because literally Elon Musk was out there giving away $1 million a day to get Trump elected. How can anybody act surprised by this? And so, yeah, I'm really at a loss. It's frustrating. I'm really at a loss for what we could do besides wait for the midterms. But this is the thing. Every day that this goes by, what are we in? We're in week 3 right now. Week 3. And look what's happened. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy. And I feel like even if people get around to wising up and getting off their asses and doing something about it, it's going to be too late. I mean, they got a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court now, and we're in week 3. And what's going to happen when Trump replaces 2 more justices this term? I feel like the opportunity, we're just going to be fighting this rear guard action forever. It's scary.
Julian, we talk about specifically there in Texas. Let me tell you how shameful Dan Patrick was. Dan Patrick tried, and they actually changed their approach because they realized how stupid it was. He tried to initially sell this voucher scam as a tax savings. So here's what they did, Julian. They said, of the money allocated per child, what we're going to do is we're going to give the parent 60% of that. And we're going to keep, for the state, 40%. So, hey, Texans, this is a tax savings. And then the idiots realize, well, the math don't work because we're taking 40% of the money, so that's going to be less money to the parent. Then they actually change it. That's how stupid these people are. Julian, you're on mute. Now you're off. Go.
I don't understand how these people go along with this stuff. In my mind, as I look at this, a long-term plan is for these oligarchs to have a labor force that is so uneducated that they can basically get over on them any kind of way.
Boom.
Dumb down the education system. And then dismantle unions, close libraries, eliminate DEI. They got all these people who know nothing. And know-nothings are the people who can be easily led to do some of everything. Then they've got Project 2025 that's about the value of work. What they really is, we don't want a social support system for those who can't apply. So you'll end up with this large reserve army of dumb, poor people, and I don't mean to call them dumb, but uneducated people who can be led anywhere. This is the plan, is to basically have a population that is so satiated with nonsense, make America great again, that they will take anything in order to, quote, make America great again. And we see it happening. We see it happening time and again. And, I hate to go look at Hitler, but, that's where some of his stuff started, looking at curriculum, looking at indoctrinating. And what is MAGA more than indoctrination? It's very, very frustrating. And as the young man who you just had on said, the state senator, you're taking the money, and Tommy, I love your language, I'm going to steal it, looting the school system. That's what they're looting. And they're doing it legally because we've allowed it, because so many people, again, have been so infatuated by that man, so infatuated with his bravado that they're not looking at what it means to them. When you look at these things, what does this mean to you? Do you have kids, grandkids? Do you care that, and if this continues to be unchecked, we're really looking at creating this mass of people who can't think and will only be led by the ignorant.
And right there, Omakongo's right. They want dumb people. And they're literally fooling these MAGA idiots. They're fooling them. And I'm like, y'all going along with it? And then you have the people who know Donald Trump is full of crap, who are like, well, I'm voting for the policies. And so they don't care about the less fortunate. They don't care about education. They don't care about any of these things. All they care about is them, their pocketbooks, their interests. And as you heard the state rep, they want to completely upend the entire system for a small percentage of rich and upper middle class people for a handful of private school seats.
Absolutely. I mean, Trump said during his first campaign, remember, I love the poorly educated. He put it out there on Front Street for everybody and has lied about nothing. And when he talked about the voucher system, let's also add in Pennsylvania in terms of what they were trying to do up there with the PASS program as well. And I think it's really important that you as media partner with representatives because this is how we get the word out. I can't remember the last time I heard anything about vouchers on any network in any way, shape, or form. But the way that they try to sell this stuff to the people to get the support of common people or folks on the ground, they lie in every way, shape, or form to make them really think that they have a choice. And like you all said in the interview, a choice what to go to a school you can't afford, or a choice you don't have a car to get access to. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But they are not going to stop because, again, this is another place where they can, as we say, loot the educational system to get money for these tax cuts.
Yep.
And if the people don't demand this, then it's like we said, it may be too late. It's not too late now. If we continue to partner and have strategic alliances like this, the representative needs to be on more networks. This needs to be a bigger issue. But many of these media folks don't care because maybe they got kids who will benefit from this program as well.
And there you go. And I've said this before. The big problem is when you start talking about issues like this, the TV anchors that you see, their kids are in private school. They're the ones who are making $2, $3, $4, $5 million. And I literally had somebody ask me, Roland, you're sitting here supporting, charter schools, and what are you doing? I'm like, fool, what are you talking about? Went to public school my entire life. Elementary school, Clinton Park Elementary School, Pleasantville Elementary Magnet School, William Holland Middle School, Jack Yates High School, Magnet School of Communications, Texas A&M. I rode the school bus from the third grade all the way through in college. And so I'm like, don't give me that crap. And so I'm like, I don't want to hear it. And that's what you have going on here. So people need to understand what's going on. This is not just Texas. It is North Carolina. They have completely destroyed. The failure in Arizona is unbelievable because these billionaires ram it through with their donations. And so folks just need to be aware of what's happening.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.